Greetings, everybody, and wow. So I swear, it is so. Community is just so important, right? Like if you want to move forward, like you just don't know what you don't know and all that. And this wonderful human being, I believe it's probably VJ, um, is put this comment said, "Can you shoot and upload videos in 1080p?" And that's really cool because I never even really thought about that and all that, but um, it also kind of points out like another thing, which is like we just don't need as much information as we used to when I was a kid. So like when I came up, you really could not give someone just a generic kind of statement like this because like it's just not complete enough. But now with ChatGPT um, and the web, I guess search in general, um, you can just say that, and then I could go into ChatGPT. So thank you, sir, appreciate it, um, and just be like, hey, so I made that small because there was some really weird pictures that YouTube was showing. It was kind of gross, and so I didn't want to do that. It was like someone's foot or something like that. I don't know. So I shrunk it down so all you could see was the comment. But anyways, I asked, hey, with OBS, can you shoot and, and output to 1080p? Which is basically what he told me in the question. It says yes with OBS Studio. Like there's probably no way that he would know that I was using BJ would know that I was using OBS Studio. So, like that. But, like I remember when I was young coming up, I might make a statement like that, and then like sort of an older person might really just dress me down, just be like, what does that mean? If you're going to talk to people, you need to be complete, and all that. But now that's just not necessary anymore because we have these things. But now it gave me all these things and all these suggestions. So I did all these things, so the videos should look different and sound different, hopefully better now. Another thing is, normally my wife is downstairs doing her show, but yesterday was Thanksgiving, so we were upstairs. She was upstairs watching one of her favorite Netflix shows that I don't particularly care for. I believe it's called Outlander, and it was in there. So it'll be very interesting to see if that video gets like some kind of punishment, like if it doesn't like if it can't show because of copyright or something like that, because I could hear it in the background. The Netflix. I should have closed the door. I normally don't need to, um, but yeah. So there's like this TV show in the background, which is kind of funny if you think about it. So we'll see what happens um, with that. And then number three is today is Friday, November 29th. And here in the United States, I know, just don't even know what percentage. The problem is it's only like 15%, maybe 10, between 10 and 15% of the people that come to this pay that watch my videos are trackable. Like they have their settings set to where you can't track them, which I don't blame you. It is it's weird times when it comes to data and all that. So most people have their settings set up to where you cannot track and determine who they are, where they're from, and all that. But based on the people who can be tracked, the vast majority of the people are not from the U.S. So they don't really, So I talk about things, but today is a special day in the United States, and it's called Black Friday, and basically it's got a for sort of it's almost over. Like it's a really neat tradition that we had here, but it's like on its way out. But basically the idea was that originally companies would have like they buy all their inventory for the year, like at the beginning of the year, and then at the this would be the traditionally the day that they would start like they were in profit, like they've made their money off of that, and they need to start clearing the shelves for the stuff that's coming next year. And so they would start selling all their stuff even at a loss, so maybe they paid $10 for a raincoat or something like that, but then they'll sell it for $5 because they ordered 100 raincoats and they sold 90 of them for $50 a piece, and now they're selling the last 10 for $5 a piece because they've already made their profit on it, and they're just getting rid of the stuff because they need to make room for next year's stuff. So that's what it was, and then it sort of morphed into like just a big sale. So companies would just buy stuff to sell specifically on Black Friday, and then they would reward people for showing up. So if you showed up, if you were first in line, like maybe they'd be selling 10 TVs for like $50 a piece that were, like massive TVs, or a PlayStation for for $5, and if you were first in line. Or sometimes there were things that like they hadn't made enough for everybody to buy for the Christmas. Like there's going to be more demand than the number of units they could sell. So then you could pay full price, but at least you could get one, and that was the thing. But now, like, there's no special deals or anything like that on Black Friday, but some people still go out and do it on just for the sake of tradition. And then there's also now a thing called Cyber Monday, which is in a couple of days, where you supposedly, like, on all the websites will sell things at really cheap prices. But that's that. So what are we at? So basically, last week or yesterday, I kind of came to the conclusion, and I don't know that I haven't really tested this out, but came to the conclusion that you should not ever do whatever it is you're going to do with data entry if the form is invalid. And that had the result I was hoping. Let's just double check that it actually has the result I was hoping for. Basically, the problem I was experiencing was for lit exponential. If I would type in point, it would go to 0. And I wouldn't be able to then go from an invalid to a valid state, which I wanted to have a specific path for point. It's the only time, if you typed anything else, I wanted to go back to the last valid value if there was a valid value. So basically now we're back. We're back and all that. So there was a thing that I had built out, and I don't know if it's still there, because basically I freaked out and got rid of all my code that go. And I don't know where we're at with this. Where are we on this? So this is the code that makes the code invalid. I mean, that basically makes stuff work as I was hoping. Basically, it just says, hey, if the form is valid, then go ahead with that, and it returns the fog density. So I'm going to commit that so that I can, because the stuff I'm doing right now, I'm not confident about, and I may want to just bail from it. So git add dot git commit, and that was video 306 dash m video 306. This is video 307. Only disables form if invalid. Disables form if invalid. So now, like, we nuked everything at some point. It was very dramatic. There was all kinds of, let me push that, git push. So where are we? I don't even know where we're at. I don't know anything. I'm lost. So let's go ahead and try to figure out where we're at. So if I remember correctly, at some point I had written a bunch of code to get the invalid get validation value function for token, overwrite exceptions. Okay, so we got that. We still have that. That's good. And then I think there was a function that would use this. Yes, get override exceptions for token. So what we have now is in the scene manager, we have 4 places that we are doing overwrite exception, or that we're doing stuff, right? We have 4 places that we're doing stuff with the exception to allow the exception. And now one of them I don't even think matters anymore, right? Because like in here we were saying for so fog density we're not doing anything, and for fog near we're not doing anything anymore. So for a while there I think we had code that was like was allowing it to get updated, but we don't even get to this code if the form is invalid. So I don't even think, so I think actually everything's simplified. And so down here now, basically I think what we want to look for is, okay, so, oh well, we have 3 places where we are, or 5 places where we do that. Okay, so we have a comment here, and this is validate fog. So when we validate this fog, we check to see if it's this, and And we just manually do that, but what would be nice is if we checked it, if we actually went and went to this validation service and got the list. So two, okay, that's where we do it. When we talk about it, two, we do it. Here we do it, and we never talk about it. What is this? Form initialized. Okay, so this is when it's been updated, but we actually added some code here. So we should never, this actually shouldn't happen. And it is the easiest thing in the world at this point to just leave this code. Like, I cannot tell you how many times I've seen people just leave. Like, I think that is the default. Most people will just leave code. They'll be like, oh, that never gets called, whatever, leave code. Just leave it, doesn't matter. But it does matter because the next person that comes up is going to think that this code does something. And it's going to be confusing. And the last thing, the enemy, the absolute enemy of development is confusion, right? There's some places, there's some things where being confused is fun and exciting. This is not one of them. You want to avoid confusion at all costs in software development, in my personal opinion, because no matter how perfect you do everything, there's still going to be a lot of confusion. And if you get too much confusion, it's very, very bad for you. So anything you could do to get rid of confusion is a good thing. So again, I do not think this is, that I don't think that can happen anymore. I do not think you can get to this part of the code. The form is invalid if it's point, so this code will never fire. So let's remove it since it's dead code, and move on. Dead code is the enemy. Okay, here we have, this is where we're actually doing stuff. We revalidate the fog density, and we don't have a comment for it. So that's why we have 3 of them. So everything makes sense. We're not confused. We know that there's 3 instances of this. One of them is a comment. 2 of them are actual code. The reason we don't have a comment for the other one is because when I freaked out and bailed out of everything. So, boom. Now, let's just make sure everything still works as expected. And let's see. What we want is 0.3a. Okay, that works. So it would be very nice if we could write unit tests that check this. I don't know if it's worth it though. Like if you work in a kind of situation, a lot of times what happens is you work in a situation where like the code you're writing is so critical that it has to be tested by a bunch of other people. So you, like, the most extreme case I've ever seen of this was like in the 1990s. I knew some people where they actually came to work every day and they stood outside of a big iron safe, and there was like a combination lock, and somebody would open the combination lock and they would go in. They all knew each other. There was like 3 of them that worked together, but they all sat in their own little safe, and then they would get a little task to write code, and it would just literally be like, create an array and sort it, blah blah blah, because whatever they were working on was so top secret that like, they weren't even allowed to know what it was. They just had to write code. So they would write the code and they would save it, and then some other people would evaluate that code, and then they would pick the best one. And the only feedback they ever got was a green or a red light. And if the green light came on, that means that they accepted the code. And if the red light came on, that means that they rejected the code. Now, I bet you that was bullshit. I bet you if they thought it was good code, they gave you a green. And if they thought it was bad code, they gave you a red. But anyways, and they would sit in there for 8 hours and they'd get like 5 or 6 tasks all day long. And he said, like, you could literally write the code in like 10 seconds. And then you had an hour to sit there and just obsess over that code. See, in that situation, writing unit tests makes total sense, right? You have so much time, and it's so critical that it be exactly right, that writing unit tests would make sense in that scenario, or some scenario kind of like that. But anyways, we aren't writing unit tests because I don't think it's worth it. at this point. But let's see, where are we on time? So we're at 15 minutes, so this would be a good time to stop. So next time, basically, what I'm going to do is I have these tokens, and I'm going to get the token, which is going to give me a list of exceptions. We're going to iterate them. We're basically back to a couple videos back. And then, if I remember correctly, since we already kind of went down this path, what will happen is it'll make total sense to make that into its own function, and then and make sure that that all works. And then if that works, then it'll make sense to um, use that function in both cases. And then last time we thought we were going to have to do it in 4 different places. We are going to have to do it in the subroutine or in the subscriptions and in here, but now we know we don't have to do it in subscriptions. So that is good, and that's exactly how things work. Because, I don't know where this came from, but I read something once that said the best code is not written, it's rewritten. And that's exactly what we're doing here. We've already wrote this code once, now we're rewriting it again. And that is the way it goes. And apparently that's how it works for fiction books as well. Like the best books, they write them and they'll write them again and they'll write them again and write them again. And they write all these other things and all that. And that's exactly how this works too. Anyways, everybody, happy coding. Bye.